In this video, we are going to discuss some of the benefits of making Aliyah or going up to the Holy Land, Eretz Yisrael. It is every Jew's right, whether it's a born Jew or a convert, to return to the land that was promised to his forefathers, Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. And we are living in a privileged generation where we do have the ability to make Aliyah to our promised land. Now, as I mentioned, there is several benefits of making Aliyah, but I'm going to point out a few of the benefits that I myself have experienced in making Aliyah, and at the end I will try to tally it all up to show you the total package that you will be getting if you do decide to take hold of your birthright and make Aliyah to Eretz Yisrael. So let's start from the beginning. Benefit number one free flight ticket from your country of origin to the Holy Land, Eretz Yisrael. Now, this is normally a El Al flight that normally would cost you a one-way flight about 2,500 shekel, which the government of Israel is giving to you free of charge in order that you can afford to make Aliyah to the Holy Land. Benefit number two, one free SIM card that you get when you arrive in Israel so that you can make calls, get in touch with people in Israel. It's got too many calls, too many free minutes to mention. I think it's about 3,000 free minutes. I don't even know how many SMSs. I don't know who still SMSs. And then a gig of data. And you can obviously, once that is finished or depleted, then you register with whichever mobile company your heart desires, and then you can continue to have free minutes, SMSs, and data. I'll tell you the plan that I'm on Hot Mobile, because that is the free SIM card I got, and I'm paying about 50 shekels a month, and I am getting, I think, 100 gigs of data, which I don't really use because I've got Wi-Fi almost everywhere. And also I think 1,000 or 2,000 free minutes of calls, and I don't know how many thousands of free SMSs. So it really is very cheap, the mobile providers in Israel, and that is another great benefit of making Aliyah. Aliyah benefit number three, the Sol Klita. Now, this is probably one of the best benefits financially of making Aliyah to Israel. And that is the Sol Klita, which means absorption basket. This is a benefit that the state provides to any Oleh Chadash, any new immigrant, to make the landing as soft as possible. Now, the Sol Klita for a single person is about 2,500 shekels every month for 6 months. Now, if you're a family making Aliyah, that will be considerably more. I think it's up to 4,000 to 5,000 shekel every month, depending on how many children you have. But if you're a single person like me making Aliyah, it will be about 2,500 shekels every month. On your arrival in Israel, you will get half of your first Sol Klita. That means you will get 1,250 shekels as you land in Eretz Yisrael. And then at the end of the month, you will get the remainder of that, so the other 1,250 shekels. And after that, each month, 2,500 shekel. Now, this translates to a benefit for the 6 months with you making Aliyah of 15,000 shekels for the period. An absolutely fantastic benefit. The fourth benefit of making Aliyah is the Ulpan. Now, Ulpan is a government subsidized program for you to learn Hebrew. Now, learning Hebrew isn't the easiest thing to do, depending on your Hebrew level. Now, before you go into the Ulpan, you will write a test. Now, I can tell you when I wrote the test, they handed me the test. I filled in my name, I filled in the date. I handed them back the test. The girl told me, no, you got to fill it all in, and you got to fill it all in Hebrew. I told her that's what I know in Hebrew. So I obviously went to Kita Aleph, which is the basic learning the alphabet, learning how to write in Hebrew, learning how to read Hebrew, and then you slowly build up your Hebrew. Now, the way the Ulpan works is there's two ways to go into this Ulpan. The one way is that you study Ulpan full-time for 6 months. Now, the government will fully pay for this Ulpan and you will not pay a cent. And this Ulpan is 5 hours of Hebrew every day for 5 days in the week. If you were to pay for this Ulpan privately, you would pay about 7,500 shekels, which you will be getting absolutely free from the government. Now, if you decide, like I did, that you rather want to work and do Ulpan part-time, then you will be entitled to 10 months of free Ulpan, and you will be studying 3 hours for 3 days a week of Hebrew. And I can tell you that that greatly benefited me in learning Hebrew and feeling more comfortable in Hebrew, and actually being able to write in Hebrew, which is very important in Israel. And that's another fantastic benefit that the government gives you free of charge. I can tell you that I'm currently doing a private Ulpan where I am paying 250 shekels an hour. So this is a great benefit that the government provides to all Ulim Khalashim. Benefit number 5. Another great benefit that the government gives you is the ability to stay in a Mirkaz Klita, in an absorption center. Now, the absorption center, the place that you will be staying in, depending if you're a single person, you're going to be staying with someone else in a room, which is uncomfortable for many people. But if you are a family making Aliyah and deciding to stay in a Mirkaz Klita, you would be sharing with your family. Now, the rates, again, is heavily subsidized by the government. You will be paying per month for this Mirkaz Klita about 1,250 shekels a month. Now, to give you a rough idea, this is a much smaller place. But for the Mirkaz Klita, you will be paying 1,250 shekels. To get an equivalent to that Mirkaz Klita, you are looking at about 3,000 shekels a month minimum, assuming that it's also fully furnished like the Mirkaz Klita. So that is a benefit for you each month of 1,750 shekels, which on a 6-month period works out to be roughly around 10,500 shekels for the 6-month period. Benefit number 6. Now, this benefit not everyone will be using, but I certainly took advantage of this benefit, and that is bringing over a container of your goods, so your household goods, to Israel, and you will not be paying a single cent of tax on that container. Now, a side note on this is that you will be paying for the container. Now, the container price differs on the size of the container and probably from where you are shipping it from. Now, I took my container from South Africa, which is quite a distance, so I'm assuming you pay more. I paid for my container about 20,000 shekels, but I didn't pay any tax on my goods, and my container was full of all my household goods. Now, many people speculate, is this actually a benefit to bring a container or to just buy the things in Israel? Now, I can tell you that I bought a fridge, a stove, and a washing machine in Israel, and that was about 6,000 shekels. And I think it is worth bringing your own things from your home country to Israel if you can afford it, and if you already built up a lot of things in your home country. Also makes your home feel more homely. So I would highly recommend using this benefit. And there's no real monetary value unless you're going to calculate the tax on every single item. But not to pay any tax is a great benefit. In most countries, if you bring things over, especially electronic goods, then you would be paying quite a bit of tax on that. Benefit number 7. A 90% reduction on your Arnona. Now, Arnona is like city tax. So each city has its own rate based on the size of the place that you're staying in. So I stay in a 124 square meter place. It's on the 3rd floor, no elevator. And I am paying Arnona of about 750 to 800 shekels a month. Now, after making Aliyah and signing a contract with a place that you're leasing, let's say you're not staying in the Mirkaz Klita like I did. I didn't stay in the Mirkaz Klita. Then you will be getting 12 months. On 12 months, you'll be getting a 90% reduction in your Arnona. So that means for 12 months, you will only be paying 90% of your Arnona, which in my case is 800 shekels. That means that I'm only paying about 80 shekels every month Arnona. So that gives me a saving each month of 720 shekels on my Arnona. So that after a year's period of this Arnona benefit is a benefit of about 8,640 shekels that you do not have to pay in your first year. Benefit number 8. The housing subsidy. So, as I explained in the previous benefits, is you do get a Sol Klita on your arrival. That Sol Klita lasts for 6 months. After that, after 10 months of you staying in Israel, you will be getting a housing subsidy of about 400 shekels if you're a single person like me for the next 4 years from date of Aliyah. Meaning after 10 months, your housing subsidy kicks in, so you start getting 400 shekels every month, and you will be getting it from the time you receive it for another 3 years and 2 months. So that is a total benefit of about 15,200 shekels for this 3 years and 2 months that you will be getting from the government to help you afford accommodation. Benefit number 9. Free healthcare. Now, the healthcare in Israel is quite complicated. And there's a few medical aids that provides healthcare for Israeli citizens. And you select one of these healthcare plans on your arrival. So you should do your research on which healthcare plan is best suited to you. I can tell you from my personal experience, they are all the same. The biggest healthcare providers that provides for Ulim that speak English is Maccabi and Klita. And most people are on either Maccabi or on Klita. I can tell you that they are all basically the same, and you pay very little for healthcare in Israel. I am on the top plan of Maccabi called Maccabi Sheli, and I pay about 100 shekels every month for my plan, which is a fraction of the cost that I used to pay in South Africa. In South Africa, I paid about 500 shekels a month, and I was on a very basic plan in South Africa. In South Africa, to be on one of the top plans, you're looking at about 1,000 shekel every single month. So that in itself is already a great benefit. Now, why do I pay 100 shekels every month if I'm saying your healthcare is free in Israel? That is because your healthcare is only free if you are not working. So if you're not working for the first 12 months, let's say you're focusing on your Hebrew for the first 6 months, the other 6 months you're looking for work, networking, maybe taking on another plan with the Ulpan to further your Hebrew, then your healthcare would be free for that time period. Benefit number 10, the driver's license. Now, in Israel, you can take your foreign driver's license from the country that you are from and convert it within the first year into an Israeli driver's license. This way, you do not have to do the test in Israel. There's no written test about road safety laws, and there is no actual driving test. You basically go to the traffic department, you schedule an appointment for this, then you go there, and then they convert your current driving license into a temporary Israeli driver's license, which then becomes your permanent driver's license. So this is a bit of a process, but it's much easier than actual taking a written test, probably in Hebrew, and then doing a driving test. Benefit number 11, your passport. After 90 days of making Aliyah to Israel, you will be getting your blue passport. So when you arrive to Israel, you will first be getting this little book, which is Taudat Oleh, a document of an immigrant. And that is basically registering you in Israel, and it's a basic document that you will need to access some of your benefits, like some of the benefits I've mentioned before. Only someone with a Taudat Oleh can access some of these benefits that I mentioned before. Now, you can decide in two ways to get your passport. The first way is you can renounce your citizenship of your previous country, which most people do not want to do, and then you can get your passport immediately. The other thing you can do is you can wait 90 days and then you will get your passport, your new Israeli passport. Benefit number 12, holidays. We that are used to Chutz La'aretz are not used to holidays, especially if you are a religious Jew. Most of your holidays that you get in Chutz La'aretz are spent on the Chagim, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Sukkot, Shavuot, various holidays. Even Tisha B'Av, many people take off in Chutz La'aretz because it's very difficult to fast, full 25-hour fast without taking a holiday. Now in Israel, all these holidays is public holidays, except fast days like Tisha B'Av and the other fast days. Today, for example, was Tisha B'Av, and I took a day's leave on Tisha B'Av. And one of the amazing things is I have a military clinic, which is a very important clinic for me in my profession. The clinic doesn't go on without me sitting there. And I said, look, it's Tisha B'Av. I do not want to work on Tisha B'Av. And no one even blinked an eye. They said, obviously, you're a religious Jew, we understand. Religious Jews don't work on Tisha B'Av. And that's one of the great benefits of living in Israel. No one questions you if you want to take off on a fast day, even if it's a very important day for you to work. They realize that you're religious and some concessions have to be made. So in Israel, I get 24 days leave. Not everyone gets that huge amount of leave in Israel. It's normally about 15 days. But you have 15 actual days of leave. Because you don't take any leave for holidays like Yom Kippur, Rosh Hashanah, Sukkot, Shavuot, because they are all national holidays. So that is one of my favorite benefits of living in Israel. Benefit number 13. Almost everything in Israel is kosher. Now you got to check this, as some of the areas in Israel is very secular, like Tel Aviv, aka Sin City. There you got to be more careful and go into every restaurant and first check the Tudat Kashrut, the kosher document. Now basically you got to check on this document who is giving the kashrut, who is giving the Tudah, and what date does it expire. And this depends heavily on how you are holding with kashrut. So I keep kashrut the Rabbanan, which is much easier. In Israel you can eat almost everywhere with kashrut Rabbanan. Even in Sin City, Tel Aviv, there are places that is in fact kosher the Rabbanan. If you are keeping kashrut Mahadran, it is much more tricky to find places that is kosher, but you will obviously find a lot more places that is kosher the Rabbanan in the more religious areas like Yerushalayim or Bnei Brak. I live in Arnona, where the whole main street Achuza is kosher the Rabbanan, but there's only 2 places that is kosher Mahadran. So you gotta know where you are holding, obviously keep the custom that you're following, but it is much easier to find kosher places in Israel than it is anywhere else in the world. Benefit number 14. Synagogues. And there is basically a synagogue around every corner, literally. It is very easy to choose accommodation because there is literally a shul within walking range anywhere in Israel, even in Sin City, aka Tel Aviv. So it is much easier to decide on a place to stay because Jews like to stay close to a synagogue. Even Masorti, traditional Jews, like to stay close to a synagogue for Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. Many people call these Jews 3 days a year Jews. But here they are called Masorti, traditional. And it is such a pleasure to be able to be anywhere in the country and being able to go for a quick mincha or a mariv or shachris. No matter where you are in Israel, you will find a minyan. In Arnona, where I stay, there is actually a shul called Kilat Ariel, I call it the minyan factory, that basically has a minyan the whole day. So it's absolutely fantastic to be able to daven with a minyan wherever you are. In my hospital where I work, Tel HaShomer, Israelis call it Shiba, there is a fully functional shul in the hospital that will put a lot of the shuls in Chutz La'aretz to shame. And this is just a minyan factory shul. It is absolutely fantastic. And the last benefit, but certainly not the least benefit, benefit number 15. By moving to the land of Israel, you are fulfilling a biblical commandment of taking possession of the land, which is your birthright. A birthright promised by God Himself to Avram, Yitzhak, and Yaakov, that this would be a land for the Jews for eternity. And we are living in a very privileged generation where we can actually take hold of our birthright and occupy the land of Israel, a land promised to us by God to the forefathers, Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Now you can see with this great list, 15 great benefits of making Aliyah. My question to you would be, why are you not yet making Aliyah? Why are you still stuck in Chutz La'aretz, and why do you not make a return to the Holy Land, Eretz Yisrael? I hope to see you all soon in the Holy Land. May we merit to see the rebuilt temple soon in our days, and the coming of Mashiach, where everyone will realize and know that there is but one God. Shabbat Shalom.